Christ is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
There's something about soldiers that I don't have. Let me give you an example. In 2011, the renowned United States Special Forces, the SEAL Team 6, they raided the compound where Osama bin Laden had been hiding. And after making their way through the entire house and clearing each room, they made their way up to the third floor to the room where he was hiding. As they began to enter the room, they discovered him taking cover behind two women. One of the soldiers first through the door lunged forward and tackled these women out of the way of the other soldiers. He did this because it was believed these women were going to attempt to protect bin Laden through the use of suicide explosives. The soldier was using his own body to protect his brother soldiers. So whatever it is about a soldier, about that particular soldier that enabled him to do that, I don't have that. We could say, well, he's trained for that. That's what they trained for. We could say, oh, it's just simple bravery. Some people have it and some people don't. And we can certainly say it's out of love for his fellow soldiers, for his brothers following behind him. And these things are all true, and they deserve to be recognized, but I think there's something more to it. Today we celebrate the memory of another soldier, a soldier saint, St. George, the great martyr, the trophy bearer, the wonder worker. He was a highly decorated and well-respected Roman soldier in the late 3rd century, and he was just a young man in his early 20s. And when the Emperor Diocletian gave his governors full freedom to prosecute Christians, St. George distributed all his wealth to the poor, freed his servants, and then appeared before the Senate and declared, I am a servant of Christ, my God, and trusting in him, I have come among you voluntarily to bear witness concerning the truth. And just as the Lord was questioned before Pilate at his trial, one of the dignitaries asked, what is truth? The saint replied, Christ himself, whom you persecuted, is truth. They tried further to persuade him not to throw away his youth and his glory and his honors, and if he would just offer sacrifice to the false gods, to the idols, then this could be all over. Instead, St. George said to them, nothing in this inconstant life can weaken my resolve to serve God. This, of course, resulted in St. George being tortured in ways that defy the imagination. And in the middle of it all, St. George informed the emperor, you will grow tired of tormenting me sooner than I will tire of being tormented by you. When the time finally came for his execution, St. George calmly presented his neck for beheading. That is something I don't have. So what exactly is that thing that St. George had? The emperor wanted an answer to this question as well, and St. George told him, do not imagine that it is any human learning, he says, which keeps me from being harmed by these torments. I am saved only by calling upon Christ and his power. Whoever believes in him has no regard for tortures and is able to do the things that Christ did. He gave sight to the blind, cleansed the lepers, healed the lame, gave hearing to the deaf, cast out demons, and raised the dead. So that thing that soldiers like St. George have, that I don't, I believe is actually a lack of something. St. George had no fear of death. And so perhaps we could say that a soldier of Christ cannot actually be killed, because St. George had already put to death in himself anything that was not Christ. So then why don't I have this? Why don't we have this? Could it be that we still cling to the lie that our false gods will save us? We think if we don't hoard enough material for ourselves, we might put ourselves at risk, or if we're too occupied giving to others or caring for the sick, we might compromise our own health. The love in our hearts reminds us of our faith in Christ, but the fear in our minds nags at us. What about human learning? What about the science? And because we're not St. George, we try to escape the torment. And so, over time, we construct, piece by piece, the most glorious facade to which we devote all our faith and trust and hope and sacrifice, the greatest of false gods, the grandest of idols, ourself. And here I have to confess to you that if they tried to persuade me not to give up my glory and honor, my youth is already gone, but if they tried to persuade me and then promised me it would be all over if I would just devote myself to the false gods, and then also threatened me with torture and death, I don't know that I would so quickly turn it down. This is the very battle to which we are called. Like a soldier, we are called to enact violence upon all that would take the place of Christ in our hearts and to take the kingdom of heaven by force. This is the thing. This is how St. George could say to his torturers, "Nothing in this inconstant life can weaken my resolve to serve God." There was nothing left in the world that could satisfy St. George's flesh, and so there was nothing left in the world that could harm his flesh. Let this be so in us. Take heart, my friends. Let no one weep for his iniquities, for pardon has shone forth from the grave. Let no one fear death, for the Savior's death has set us free. He that was held prisoner of it has annihilated it. By descending into hell, he made hell captive. There's something about soldiers that I don't have, but today is the day I will make a new beginning. From this moment forward, we emulate the glorious St. George, and in his words cry out, we are saved only by calling upon Christ and his power. Whoever believes in him has no regard for tortures and is able to do the things that Christ did. And we let nothing in this inconstant life weaken our resolve. Christ is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
And death is overthrown. Christ is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
And life reigns. Christ is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
And not one dead remains in the grave. Glory to his holy third day resurrection.
Let us adore his third day resurrection.